course, I'm being silly bringing up the Beastie Boys and some of their lyrical content. But when you look at our age, and I'm talking about 20 year span, and you think about it, you're like, well, I heard this when I was 13. Well, I heard this when I was 10. This wasn't like an album that nobody listened to, and it wasn't very established. So to have those kinds of lyrics were absolutely like insane when you look at some of the things that you try to keep your kids away from. But then Paul's Boutique comes out, which is a bizarre album because when it came out, it was a flop. Capitol Records signed the Beastie Boys from Def Jam. He even had a big promo party on top of the Capitol Records building in Hollywood. And then when the record came out, it was like disco retro. It was the first song that ever like played disco as like a retro, like a flashback. But it really wasn't just like disco retro. It was like hardcore New York living in the 70s. Which is funny because also at the time, they're now moving to Atwater, California, where after this album they took off for a long time and did Check Your Head. This album releases, Paul's Boutique, and you don't have much fanfare at all. In fact, it was considered a total failure. And then what's so crazy is over the next few years, more and more people listened to it and started to get it and what they were saying. And I would have to say that most people who understand, pop music, not just hip hop music, but just music in general, this is the album that would, if you would try to clear the samples on this album, it would be impossible to make. It would be so much money. It would be the most expensive album ever made. It totally cut off sampling in hip hop, so that's a negative thing. They sampled everything there could be, and this album just finally pushed artists over the edge. To this day, like Bittersweet Symphony by The Verve, they sampled a 2 second segment of a Rolling Stone song. And what did the Boomers do? They sued them so badly. They never received a penny for that song. And it's a classic, classic song. But again, when Paul's Boutique came out, it wasn't even put together right. But it did put together right when it came with the lyrics on the inner sleeve. And in a funny moment when you thought the Beastie Boys were long dead and gone, like almost every other band ever in existence, it just comes and goes, or it's not their time of the month. The Beastie Boys got huge after the failure, but on the same album of that album being released. So that when Check Your Head came out, people were like, "Holy shit, this is going to be amazing! This is going to be like to see the Beastie Boys then was like, Jimi Hendrix coming back from the dead." But the Beastie Boys were never dead, except in record sales. But then we started understanding the album. The song "Car Thief," which has so many subliminal meanings, even occult meanings. He says some static started in the pool hall, that he hit a motherfucker's face with a cue ball, and he met a girl and she tried to gank me. So I smacked her in the pootie with a plank B, 'cause him and his crew, they were out breaking windows. The bingo, the lotto, I'll never win those. Possession is half the law, and I had my routine before all of y'all. Your whole life is coming apart at the seams. You're not anything but a car thief fighting routines. See, I'm a city slicker. I ain't no townie. And right now, I wish I had another hash brownie. Remember a hash brown? No, that's a space cake. I was going to say mushrooms and weed in a brownie. Mushrooms. It's called space cake. People are always trying to get next to me because I had the beautiful experience on ecstasy. So I smoke up a bag of elephant tranquilizer because I have to deal with the money hungry miser. Or the cocaine filled cool with my man Rush Rush. You see my teeth fall in the sink when I started to brush. You'll be doing nose candy on the Bowie Coke mirror. My girl asked for some, but I pretended not to hear her. I've heard murder, death, and all kinds of. I've never heard drug rhymes like that, and that was 3 years before Cypress Hill even came out. And when Cypress Hill came out with the weed thing, that was huge. Like you're doing this openly in public. Like you could go to jail big time for weed. You still could, but now it's nothing like it was back then. So Cypress Hill, I think got weed legalized at least. Well, maybe not in the city councils, But when you think about it and you listen to the lyrics of this album, but especially the song Car Thief, you realize, holy shit, dude. These guys are talking about drug references that I don't even think we would have the balls to say in a song today, even in retrospective sense. It's insane. The cocaine filled cool with my man Rush Rush. That's getting that's beyond fentanyl. Like fentanyl's like sugarcoating, play school shit. These cats are talking about like they're at least speaking as if they're very very aware of like the underground world. Put it that way.